In September 1939, when World War II began, armies marched with equipment that would have been familiar to soldiers from the previous war. Polish cavalry units still charged across battlefields. Biplanes made of wood and canvas flew reconnaissance missions. Bolt-action rifles were standard issue. But within 6 years, everything would change. This war would see the greatest technological leap in human history, from horses to helicopters, from propeller planes to jets, from conventional bombs to weapons that could vaporize entire cities. Over 100 million people would be mobilized. Nations would spend billions on research and development. Scientists, engineers, and inventors would work around the clock, driven by a simple truth: innovate or die. The side with better technology, better tactics, and better production would survive. The loser would face extinction. What you're about to witness is the story of how desperation transformed science fiction into deadly reality. How 6 years of total war compressed a century of innovation into a brutal race for survival. Welcome to the technological evolution of World War II. This wasn't just about building bigger guns or faster planes. It was about fundamentally reimagining what warfare could be. Radio communication, radar detection, encrypted messages, automated systems, technologies that didn't exist in practical form in 1939 would become essential by 1945. And at the end, humanity would unlock the power of the atom itself, changing warfare and geopolitics forever. When Germany invaded Poland on September 1, 1939, they brought a new concept: blitzkrieg. Lightning war. But let's be clear, the weapons themselves weren't revolutionary. The Panzer I and II tanks were lightly armored, barely better than training vehicles. Many German units still relied on horse-drawn supply wagons. What was revolutionary was the coordination. Tanks, infantry, artillery, and dive bombers working together with radio communication created a devastating combined arms assault that shattered Polish defenses in weeks. Meanwhile, France prepared for war using World War I thinking. The Maginot Line, massive concrete fortifications that were supposed to make France impregnable. Static defense against mobile warfare. It failed spectacularly. The British entered the war with excellent pilots but outdated aircraft. The ferry battle bomber was a death trap, slow, poorly armed, vulnerable. Early losses were catastrophic. Yet within this outdated arsenal, seeds of revolution were sprouting. Britain was developing radar. Germany was testing rocket technology. Scientists in multiple countries were exploring nuclear fission. The Americans were experimenting with long-range bombers. These early experiments would soon transform into weapons that would decide the war. The question wasn't if technology would change warfare, but how fast it could be developed and deployed before your enemy did the same. In 1939, tanks were support vehicles, slow, unreliable, and lightly armored. By 1945, they dominated the battlefield. Let's track this evolution. The German Panzer III started the war with 30 mm of armor and a 37 mm gun. Adequate against Polish tankettes and French light tanks, but quickly outmatched. Enter 1942, the Tiger I. This monster had 100 mm of frontal armor and the legendary 88 mm gun that could destroy any Allied tank at ranges over 2 kilometers. It was slow, mechanically unreliable, and Germany only built 1,347 of them. But psychologically, it was devastating. Allied tank crews feared it. Meanwhile, the Soviet T-34 revolutionized tank design. Sloped armor that deflected shells. Wide tracks for mobility in mud and snow. A powerful 76 mm gun. And crucially, it was simple enough to mass produce. The Soviets built over 57,000 of them. The American response was the M4 Sherman. Not the best tank, its armor was thin, its gun was adequate at best. But the US built 50,000 of them and they were reliable. You could repair a Sherman with basic tools. American tank doctrine wasn't about one-on-one duels with Tigers, it was about overwhelming numbers and logistics. By 1945, tanks had evolved from support vehicles into the decisive weapon of mobile warfare. The nation that could produce more, maintain better, and deploy faster would control the battlefield. The evolution of aircraft during WW II was staggering. In 1939, the fastest fighters flew around 350 miles per hour. By 1945, jets were breaking 550 miles per hour. Let's trace this journey. The Battle of Britain in 1940 featured the Spitfire versus the Messerschmitt Bf 109, both excellent propeller-driven fighters, evenly matched. The Spitfire could turn tighter, the 109 could dive faster. Pilot skill mattered more than the machine. But technology advanced rapidly. The P-51 Mustang, introduced in 1943, changed everything. With drop tanks, it could escort bombers from England to Berlin and back, over 1,500 miles. Suddenly, German industry wasn't safe anywhere. Bombers evolved too. The B-17 Flying Fortress could carry 4,800 pounds of bombs at 287 miles per hour with heavy defensive armament. By 1944, the B-29 Superfortress carried 20,000 pounds at 350 miles per hour at altitudes German fighters struggled to reach. Then came the revolution, jet engines. The German Me-262 flew at 540 miles per hour to 100 miles per hour faster than any Allied fighter. Nothing could catch it in level flight. But Germany deployed it too late and in too few numbers. If they'd focused on it earlier, air superiority might have shifted. The British Gloucester Meteor entered service in 1944, primarily fighting V-1 flying bombs. The jet age had begun, but the war ended before jets could truly dominate. December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor. A date that changed naval warfare forever. Japanese carrier-based aircraft destroyed the U.S. Pacific battleship fleet without a single Japanese ship being seen. This was the future. In 1939, battleships were considered the ultimate naval weapon. Massive guns, thick armor, symbols of national power. The Bismarck, Yamato, Iowa class, floating fortresses. But World War II proved the aircraft carrier was supreme. The Battle of Midway in June 1942 was the turning point. 4 Japanese carriers sunk. The battle was decided by dive bombers and torpedo planes. The massive guns of battleships never fired a shot at enemy ships, they were too far apart. Carriers could project power hundreds of miles. A single carrier could launch 80-plus aircraft to attack targets beyond the horizon. Battleships became escort vessels, using their anti-aircraft guns to protect carriers. Submarine warfare evolved too. Germany's U-boats nearly starved Britain. The Type 7 U-boat was deadly, sinking millions of tons of Allied shipping. But technology defeated them. Sonar improved. Depth charges became more effective. Radar-equipped aircraft could detect surfaced submarines at night. By 1943, the Allies were sinking U-boats faster than Germany could build them. The hunter became the hunted, naval supremacy now belonged to whoever controlled the air above the waves, not the waves themselves. Radar won the Battle of Britain, and most people don't even know it existed. In 1940, Britain had a secret, chain home, a network of radar stations along the coast that could detect German aircraft before they crossed the English Channel. While German pilots thought they had surprise, British fighters were already scrambling to intercept. This was revolutionary. Before radar, air defense was guesswork. Spotters with binoculars, listening posts trying to hear engines. By the time you saw enemy bombers, it was too late. Radar changed everything. You could see aircraft 100 miles away. Plot their course. Vector your fighters to intercept. It turned air defense from reactive to proactive. The technology evolved rapidly. Early radar was huge, stationary, and could only give rough directions. By 1945, radar was small enough for aircraft, accurate enough for naval gunfire control, and sophisticated enough to guide night fighters to enemy bombers in complete darkness. The Germans developed radar too. Their Würzburg system was excellent. But they didn't integrate it into a comprehensive defense network like Britain did. American ships used radar-directed fire control to devastating effect in Pacific night battles, hitting Japanese ships that couldn't even see them. Radar gave eyes in the dark, warning before the storm, an accuracy that human senses could never achieve. The invisible weapon that changed how wars were fought. June 13, 1944. A strange aircraft crosses the English Channel, no pilot, no propeller, just a pulse-jet engine and a ton of explosives. The V-1 flying bomb. Hitler's Vergeltungswaffe, vengeance weapon. Primitive by today's standards but terrifying then. A cruise missile before the term existed. But the real revolution was the V-2 rocket. Designed by Wernher von Braun, it was the world's first ballistic missile. It climbed 55 miles high, the edge of space. Traveled at 3,500 miles per hour. Faster than sound. There was no defense against it. You couldn't shoot it down. You couldn't hear it coming. One moment normal life, the next moment a massive explosion. From launch in Holland to impact in London took just 5 minutes. The V-2 killed thousands, but its real significance was technological. This was the ancestor of all modern rockets, ICBMs, space launchers, everything. The same technology that terrorized London would later put humans on the moon. Germany also developed wire-guided anti-tank missiles, air-to-air rockets, and experimental surface-to-air missiles. The Americans responded with the bazooka, a shoulder-fired rocket that could destroy tanks. Simple, effective, revolutionary. Infantry could now fight armor. These weren't just weapons, they were a glimpse of future warfare, guided missiles, remote-controlled bombs, rocket artillery, all pioneered in WW2, all defining modern combat today. While tanks clashed and bombers fell, another war was being fought in absolute secrecy. The War of Codes and Ciphers. Germany's Enigma machine produced 158 quintillion possible combinations. Each day, the settings changed. Breaking it seemed impossible. Yet at Bletchley Park, England, a team led by Alan Turing did the impossible. They built machines to crack Enigma. The bomb, an electromechanical computer that could test thousands of combinations per second. Later, Colossus, the world's first programmable electronic computer, used against the even more complex Lorenz cipher. The intelligence gained, codenamed Ultra, changed the war. U-boat positions were revealed, allowing convoys to avoid wolf packs. German troop movements were predicted. Field Marshal Rommel's supply lines in North Africa were targeted precisely. Churchill called it his secret weapon. But this had to remain absolutely secret. If Germany knew Enigma was broken, they'd change systems. So sometimes, Allied commanders received intelligence they couldn't act on, because using it would reveal the source. Ships were sacrificed. Attacks proceeded even though defenders knew they were coming, because preventing them would expose Ultra. The Japanese had their own cipher, Purple. American cryptanalysts broke it before Pearl Harbor, giving crucial intelligence throughout the Pacific War. Intelligence became as valuable as ammunition. December 1938. Scientists in Berlin split the uranium atom. Nuclear fission released enormous energy. Physicists worldwide realized the implications immediately. This could create a bomb of unimaginable power. Albert Einstein, who had fled Nazi Germany, wrote to President Roosevelt, "If Hitler gets this weapon first, the war is lost." Thus began the Manhattan Project, the most expensive, secret, and consequential scientific program in history. $2 billion, equivalent to over $30 billion today. 130,000 people working across multiple secret facilities. Los Alamos, New Mexico, where the brightest minds in physics gathered under Robert Oppenheimer. Oak Ridge, Tennessee, massive facilities to enrich uranium. Hanford, Washington, reactors producing plutonium. Most workers didn't know what they were building. Security was absolute. Even Vice President Truman wasn't told until he became president. July 16, 1945. Trinity Test. The first atomic explosion. Oppenheimer watched the fireball and quoted Hindu scripture, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The blast was equivalent to 22,000 tons of TNT. From a single bomb. 3 weeks later, Hiroshima. August 9, Nagasaki. Each city obliterated. Over 200,000 dead. Japan surrendered. The atomic age had begun. Humanity now possessed the power to destroy itself, the ultimate weapon. The ultimate responsibility. The ultimate question, just because we can, should we? 6 years. That's all it took to transform warfare from cavalry charges to atomic bombs. Let's summarize what World War II gave us. Military technology, jet engines, ballistic missiles, nuclear weapons, radar, sonar, electronic computers, helicopters, rockets. Medical advances, mass-produced penicillin saved millions, blood banks, advanced surgical techniques, treatments for infections and trauma. Civilian technology that came from war research, commercial jet travel, microwave ovens adapted from radar, synthetic rubber, duct tape, superglue, freeze-drying, aerosol cans. And computers, the foundation of our entire modern world, born from the need to break codes and calculate trajectories. But perhaps the most significant legacy is this, the realization that technology could end human civilization. The Cold War doctrine of mutually assured destruction. The nuclear arms race. The constant fear that one mistake could trigger global annihilation. All of it traced back to those 6 years of desperate innovation. World War II proved that in total war, science becomes a weapon as important as armies. The nation that innovates fastest wins. But it also proved that some innovations come with a terrible price, that we went from horses to the atomic bomb in 1 generation. We've lived in the shadow of that achievement ever since. Technology without wisdom is dangerous. World War II taught us that lesson in the harshest way possible. The question remains, have we learned it?